Dr. Jill Biden gave a speech tonight, Ben, obviously, as we just saw, covering this live. And we'll be covering every night of DNC and the RNC live. And the potential first lady always gives a speech at the end of one of these nights, and she did that here. And I had mixed feelings about it. So let me put it this way. I'll say before the threshold, I liked it. After the threshold, I thought it went a bit much. So what's the threshold I'm referring to? When I'm learning about her and Joe Biden and their family history, look, she doesn't have to tell us policy. She, if she does, great, but that's not necessarily what we're expecting from the first lady to come and deliver a speech on. So the things I learned about her, I like learning about it. I don't know how relevant it is, but it's still, I'm happy to know it, right? Things, and I'll give you some examples of that in a sec. Things above the threshold were like, and then she started talking about the dirty dishes in the sink, and I'm like, I got it, I love you, but this is too much, right? Like it was just personal. I mean, it was just super duper personal, right? And so they talk about the folks who pass away in their family a lot. And I've seen this now. I now haven't covered Joe Biden literally for decades. I know those stories inside and out. But I gotta say, Ben, I come close to tearing up and sometimes go above that threshold whenever I hear about Beau Biden. Because he died so young and he got the brain cancer, and when they show his pictures as a kid, and he's it's gut wrenching. But the one line that really got to me was when she talked about how Joe Biden had not shaved for 4 days after Beau Biden passed away, and then he shaved and he steeled himself to go into a world without our son. Oof! For anyone who's a parent, that's tough to listen to, and it makes you root for them.
I'm gonna tell you, like, tonight was the night that he won the presidency, if he wins, right? I think Jill did an outstanding job appealing to even someone as dead on the inside as me. I actually felt emotion. I actually felt a connection to Joe Biden, who I have been working diligently hard in avoiding, right? Because on policy, like besides him not being Donald Trump, I have no reason to want to connect with him. But as a father, as a human being, I actually felt like, wait a minute. I think the Democratic strategy on this was actually kind of brilliant, because we have something to juxtapose next to the character that Jill Biden presented. Now, second of all, she wrote that like she was a seasoned author. Whoever wrote that, right? It had a literary effect. It was really, I hate to talk about it in this category, but it wasn't a political speech. It was a beautiful speech, and it touched me, and I think it touched a lot of people. If it could touch somebody like me, I'd be surprised. It's touching a lot of people right now.
Yeah, and I actually think there was one symbol in there that was really, really powerful, which I'm going to get to in the end here. But I want to do what I usually do, which is give you some fun things in there and as much substance as we can too. And as I looked at her speech, I thought, God, well, what is Donald Trump going to say about this? I fear anything he ever said. Like, God, please don't insult their dead family members. Right? You never know with Trump. You just never know. And right. And anyway, so first of all, this is the most honest the Democrats have been, because they admitted a bunch of things in there. And that's what makes them more relatable and likable, ironically, that I'm not sure they should be admitting in terms of their relationship. This is just fun stuff. But when Joe Biden, and I've heard him say this many times, but he says, I asked her to marry me 5 times, and finally at the end she did. I'm like, Joe, I'm not sure that's such a good story, right? And then they told the story of how she was set to go out with another guy, but she broke that date to go out with Joe Biden instead. I was like, that's definitely not a good story.
To be honest with you, that's the same way. I kind of told my wife to cancel her date. So it worked. This is the best part. I'm telling you, Jake, this was the best night. Like they could have, I don't know what they juxtaposed last night, a progressive with Republican, and then they juxtaposed tonight Warhawks with somebody who actually has a heart, right? So I'm not sure what that strategy was, but they could have just left everyone off and kept Jill Biden's speech.
Yeah, I hear you on that. That'll be in our overall summary of the night. But so there was this director that was kept. You said whoever wrote the script, et cetera, and we keep it real on the Young Turks. So I'm sure that was. It felt heartfelt, and we've seen a lot of non-heartfelt speeches, et cetera. And of course, she had a little bit of help, and of course, it's choreographed to some degree. And in this case, unfortunately, you heard the director saying, "You're up, cue," before she started walking. And I think that his mic might have been on the whole time, because I thought I heard laughter in the background in the middle. And then at the end, the director seemed to be saying something. So it's unfortunate that folks got to see the man behind the curtain a little bit. We tell you about the men behind the curtain all the time. The rest of the world, the political world, doesn't. But I don't want you to think that was just Jill Biden. No, that's everybody at every convention. And then the last, one more thing that I didn't love, it was a story I didn't love. She wakes us up at Christmas Eve at 5 in the for soul cycling. I'm like, look, dude, I'm out. I don't care how lovely you are.
That was too much. Right? That was a second, like the snake in the backpack. I was like, okay, that was a little reach.
I was just waiting for Samuel Jackson to come on and said, "There's a
backpack,
snake in my MF backpack." Anyway, they should think about that one day. And look, we apparently, Ben and I both like schmaltzy stuff. But when Jill Biden was talking about how the country has our similarities are infinite, and we prove that we have a heart of kindness. That's not the sense I got from the Trump administration. I mean, the last 4 years have been very dispiriting, not just because of Trump, but because we've all come to the conclusion, and it's unmistakable, that at least 35% of this country does not think like we do. And I don't mean about hey, we disagree on policy or percentage of taxes or whatever. No, wow, very, very different. And I did not, and I don't get a sense that they have some sort of heart of gold that I didn't see in these last 4 years. But I'm keeping it too real on that. I know she's trying to reach out to folks and et cetera, and she's a kind-hearted person. But finally, the part that I thought was important was the symbolism that I just finally got as I was watching Jill Biden speak. It's Joe Biden's grieving family as a symbol of the grieving country. So both in terms of coronavirus and the protests around what happened to George Floyd, this country's grieving in a lot of ways. And my God, if you ever want a parent who's been through grief and can help you walk through it, that is Joe Biden. And you got to give him credit on that.
Yeah, I think that was the loudest part of that speech, was the fact that she was showing us. She literally took us by the hand. And I hate to give so much commentary on the presentation of it, but the speech took us by the hand. And no matter where you were, if you were actually authentically listening to her, she led you to that point that you just pointed out, Cenk, that the country is grieving, and the person who knows how to deal with grief is Joe Biden. Now, setting that aside, obviously, is everything else that comes along with the presidency and policy and everything else. But when you consider the last 5 months, the last 6 months, 170,000 people dead, there's a significant amount of grief that this country is dealing with. And Donald Trump just kind of pushes his thumb into that wound. And we got a good comparison tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a medical analogy throughout the night. Stop the bleeding, triage, live to fight another day. But yours was a little gruesome, but totally right. Trump, when he sees a wound, he doesn't think, how do I close this up? He thinks, how do I drive my thumb into it so you're in bigger pain? And Biden, for his flaws in policy, et cetera, is a guy who heals wounds. That's true. That is what he does.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.